Hi, Nigel. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Y'all are in for a treat. I know I say that so much, but truly, especially with it being February, Love Month, Black History Month, more importantly,
Amen.
I have such a special guest for you guys today, and I will let him introduce himself to you guys.
What's going on, y'all? My name is Nigel, aka Dr. Nigel. I graduated with my PhD studying Black love. I own a company called Collab Vulnerability, where it's a wellness company. We host events, we do trainings, we do coaching, we do everything, honestly. We do a lot. I have a children's book. I do different like YouTube series, TikTok, content creator, all things in between. I do a little bit of everything. I know I'm like forgetting some stuff on the list because like I do a lot, but at the end of the day, I'm just really here to make an impact, and that's what I consider myself, like the real work that I do. I'm just here to make a difference.
Okay, the list is extensive, y'all. The list is long. Y'all heard that. And I'm sure he'll remember more as we continue to talk.
Yeah, for sure.
But notice that title on him, though, Dr. Nigel. Let's talk about that. Let's go into what you got your doctorate in and why you chose to get your doctorate in that. Give us a little bit of an inside scoop into your doctorate journey.
Yeah, so my PhD journey was interesting, to say the least. To be honest with you, I never really saw myself like going and getting a PhD.
Real.
I always felt as if, like, my ultimate goal is always to be a talk show host, right? Like, I always wanted to be similar to Oprah. I grew up watching Oprah with my grandmother. It really shaped me, the way that she watched it, the way that she was locked in, the way that she absolutely like would always turn on Oprah at the end of the school. And when I got into college, I kind of felt like I was the person where I was doing a lot of work on campus. Like I started my own student organization. I was hosting events. I was building community and getting all these different people together. But I never really focused on like the resume. I never really focused on getting the job experience. In my mind, it was like, yo, somebody's gonna find me. Like I'm dope. I'm doing great work. Somebody gonna find me. And then I just really had a rude awakening my senior year where things really nobody was calling. I wasn't really getting anybody reaching out. And I was having all these people tell me like, yo, you're amazing. You're doing so much and you're gonna have such a bright future and all these things. But I didn't have any of the benefits of like jobs and recruiters and people reaching out to me. So it put me in survival mode. And I think that I bring all of this up because the way I got my PhD was because I was in survival mode.
Yeah.
It was a decision where it was like, okay, I don't know what I really want to do. I know I want to be a talk show host. I don't know how to get there. Let me go back for my master's and let me take this time to really just figure out how I can just better equip myself with skills in order to like be a talk show host. Go get my master's. I treat it like school. I graduate. I do the same thing in undergrad, creating organizations, doing all these things, making it shake. Graduating, and it's like, dang, nobody calling. And that's when I'm starting to realize, ooh, like you really need to cultivate the skills. You really need to have the internships. You got to put yourself in those spaces. So by the time I graduated with my degree, I was 22 with 2 degrees. I'll never forget. And everybody and their mama was like, yo, nobody could tell you anything. I applied to like 100 jobs and I got no response. And it was like a real rude awakening. Again, like, damn, I'm doing all this work and nothing. So for me, like applying for my PhD was an attempt for me to be a lot more intentional in my educational experience, but also being able to have something to like really give me a fallback and take a lot of the pressure of people saying like, so what are you doing with your life? Because I think I had a 3-year window of not doing anything school-wise. So it was just tough. So I say all to say, long-winded, I got my PhD out of survival mode. It wasn't like an intentional, ooh, I can't wait to have a PhD one day. It was more so a sense of like, my back's against the wall. I'm feeling a lot of pressure from my parents, from my friends, a lot of stuff. How can I do something that can take that pressure off and look like I'm excelling in a way, even though I'm strategically using this so I could tap into the resources of a college campus to build a portfolio?
Yeah. And to give you more time.
Yes.
That is something, like you said, where I didn't really look at it from my undergrad perspective until my senior year when I was screaming, crying, throwing up, being like, I don't know what I'm trying to do. I have no idea what I want to do with this major. I can't even tell people about this major because people really didn't know, like, oh, what's anthropology? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to have the same conversation over and over again. And then I applied to master's on a whim, where I was like, you know what? This seems like it could be cool. I don't have anything lined up right now to where I could try something else. I want to explore more of these new interests that I'm thinking about, but I don't know enough about. And the access to what you said of internships, of the longer that I am a student, the more resources I have at my disposal, the longer I can be classified exactly for free. And I can be classified for these internship opportunities, these rotational programs, all of this stuff where you have to be, between this year and this year. And for masters, you also get more money being a master's student with a lot of different internship degrees and things of that nature. So yeah, that's how I started literally, they were like, the window was in November 14th or something. Maybe got that application in November 12th.
Yeah.
Started on it maybe November 1st. So between writing personal statements and getting all that stuff together, I was just like, this was something to afford me more time. And now, being out of my MBA and all of that, really seeing how much I got to build and grow in that period of everything that I built consecutively, but also, to your point, very intentionally, of the resources, the organizational scaling, all of that stuff. Now I am afforded the opportunity to look at my PhD as it's my opportunity, but it's not something that I have to do because I need to do it because I'm in that place. So 100%, I am living proof of exactly what he said, like living proof, living truth, all of the things. But let's go a little bit forward into, okay, now you're in a PhD program. How did you decide what you were going to do?
So I ended up deciding what I was going to do because in terms of like creativity, when I was doing podcasts, when I was doing like questionnaires, when I was hosting events, when I was doing anything that involved community or other people, it didn't matter what it was. People always gravitated to whenever I was talking about love, relationships, connection, or anything in that nature. And it was always strange to me because I never really understood, like, dang, why do everybody like really rock with what I'm talking about? But that to me was like a sign like, okay, you need to pay attention to that. And then as I was continuing on my PhD journey, I started with a completely different dissertation topic. And I reached a like a rock and a hard place where it's either like have to either switch this or I'm dropping out. There's no middle ground for that because it was like painful to write. It was painful to do the research. I felt like it wasn't really speaking to me, and I ended up really just doing some self-reflecting. Around the time I was reading a book with a friend, All About Love by Bell Hooks, and when I was reading that, when I was thinking about my academic journey, when I was thinking about my creative journey, I'm saying I was treating it like it was two different worlds.
Yeah.
And I felt like if I really wanted to make an impact, I can't keep these things separated because in your PhD program, when you're choosing education, you're choosing creative, and you're doing them both separately, there's going to be a time where you have to choose one or the other. And that's what everybody kept on saying. Choose one or choose this. And whichever one you choose, go for it. And my mind was like, I'm going to do both. So I combined them both and really just wanted to fill a gap that I felt like, for one, there's a lot of men with mics, ironically, who talking about love, but they're talking about love from their own lived experiences. And a lot of those lived experiences aren't positive, or they're not healthy, or they don't come from a perspective of really understanding research and dynamics and critical thinking and everything in between. So for me, it was like, this is an opportunity for me to have a more academic and knowledgeable side of love, to be able to not just speak about it from my own lived experience, but actually have research and data and statistics and things to back it up. So that way, when I'm in these conversations, I'm not coming from it just from a perspective of like, this is how I feel and this is how I see. Now I can add the experiences of the other and mesh them together. And I felt like that was going to give me a step up in conversations, but also like I'm really big on connecting with people. So it helped me understand other people's behaviors and practices and different things of that nature. So to me, it was like, this is the perfect way to merge both of those worlds and to be at a place where my voice will make a difference and can help. Because it's different when you hear somebody who's just talking about it versus somebody who's researching it and really is taking that time. So for me, it was like merging my worlds together. And I'm telling, the funny thing is, like my old dissertation, it took me 2 months to write 10 pages. When I switched my dissertation to love, it took me 3 days to write 40 pages.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. And I love how you just decided when people said, you could do this, you could do that. You're like, nah, I'm going to do my own thing, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to just
don't ever tell me what I can't do. Because I'm going to always find a way to do it.
Hello.
Always.
Okay. And you married them together, no love pun intended. But it's very interesting, even if you just talking about like also having the research and the data to back it up. And one thing for me especially, I tell people all the time, the more that you decide to go into post-secondary education, the more the gap between theory and practice closes. Like it gets smaller and smaller every single time. And then I'm sure with your PhD program, you saw that a lot of, you know, getting to understand people, to your point of what you said, and then also use that quantitative side of that data, but also the qualitative in what people feel and how people experience, and being able to merge those together. Was there anything interesting that kind of came out of your research that you were doing, or anything in your dissertation that you'd like to expand on?
Yeah, I think something that has been very foundational for me, and even how the ways in which like I talk to people, how I listen to their experiences, is the one thing that was like very clear and very evident is that everybody has a different experience with love. And I think that the way in which society pushes us is to desire love, but not everybody has the tools to sustain it. Not everybody has the tools to cultivate it. Not everybody has the right models of accountability and intention and care. So you have a lot of people out here trying to find love, but really don't know how to create it and how to sustain it and how to have those emotional tools. And I think that's the one thing that's very eye-opening, because you really start to see, especially in practice and when you're listening to other people's lived experience, that a lot of the reasons why people are struggling is not because they're unlovable. It's not because they're not good enough, but it's generally because they're trying to create something with an empty toolbox.
Y'all heard that. Trying to create with an empty toolbox. I resonate with that so heavy, because there are so many situations where people will say, like, I don't know if I can tolerate that type of love, or I don't know if I can deal with that type of love, but they want it so bad. And it's like, how can you create capacity for something when you don't even know what it looks like? And hearing you talk about, like, that is something that you came across a lot of, that being the common phenomenon. What have you tried to instill into people when you're talking about these conversations of love and helping people build these foundations? What are key things that you think people are missing when it comes to how do they start to build that? How do they get the tools?
No, that's a really great question. I usually start with what you can control. A lot of people already from the jump, when they meet somebody, they're thinking about that person. How can I fit myself to be for that person? So a lot of times, like, we're wearing masks, we're hiding ourselves, we're setting aside our needs and what's important for us because we're looking at somebody and we're saying, you know what, I'm attracted to you and I hope that works out. And let's see if it works out. So I usually say, like, it really does start with self-awareness. And it's not to say like you have to know yourself to love somebody or anything like that, because I don't believe in that. But what I do think is important is, like, the more that you have a foundation and understanding of you, that helps inform your decision making, and it helps create the practice of how you're cultivating love. So what do I mean by that? When you don't know what you need, it's very hard to navigate a relationship dynamic, because everybody has needs. Everybody has something that calls to them, that energizes them, that makes them feel happy, that makes them feel seen and listened to and heard and understood. But if you don't know what that is, and if you don't know what that looks like, you're going to grab onto anything, and then you're going to try to force yourself into fitting into the mold that doesn't fit with you. So I think the more that you could take time to, like, really break down and understand, okay, what do I need? What am I looking for? What's important to me? What are my triggers? What are my boundaries? The more you're able to, like, break that down, now when you're going out, you're able to better vet out people who are for you or people who aren't for you, because now you're able to communicate the things that are important to you. And I think a lot of people genuinely don't know what's even important to them, or they hold on to this, like, idea. And granted, I be throwing my eggs in one basket too. But I think what a lot of people end up doing is, like, they throw all their eggs in one basket, and then they look at this person and they're like, you are my last hope in humanity for love. Because the dating pool is trash. It's hard out here. There's not that many good men. There's not that many good women, so on and so forth. So you throw all your hope onto one person, and then you try to make it work. And that's not what cultivating and creating love looks like.
Yeah. And to that point of if you don't know yourself well enough, the depth that you have with yourself is probably what you're going to project or assume when you're trying to meet someone else's needs as well. You don't even know what you need or how to identify what you need. So when someone is actively doing that work and they're telling you, hey, I need this or I need that, you may not be able to fully conceptualize what that looks like without having to maybe ask a lot of questions in order to get there, or it'll just take a lot more time and effort than maybe what it would have if you also had a deeper sense of yourself to really figure out, well, why do they need that? You find yourself kind of asking those things of, what does it matter? I don't need that. Well, guess what? Your needs aren't what the other person might need. But just even having that level of foundation of understanding to think, I know I need this because X, Y, Z. Okay, this person is asking for this need to fulfill what? Or even to start having that dialogue in those conversations of what does this need fulfill for you? And what are the ways that I can personally fulfill that in the ways that you can't on your own? How do I add to that?
Yeah, and that you're hitting on another like very important element is like willingness. Like there has to be a level of willingness to work with somebody too.
Yeah.
Because I think we all want to fit somebody into our real perfect, comfortable schedule that we have. But by nature, loving someone is an act of willingness. It's an extension. You're extending yourself, and you're often putting yourself in positions where you're going to be inconvenienced, where you're going to be uncomfortable. But that's why it's important to be able to know yourself, because you can tell when you are uncomfortable in a bad way, and you can tell when you're uncomfortable in a good way. And I think that's where a lot of people want the convenience, but they don't want the work. They want the person. They want the idea of the person, but they don't want the person. And it's not something that's just easy. It's going to happen overnight. That it's just going to magically be this Disney Channel fairy tale. I think a lot of people just really have to take off that rose-colored glasses and like really do the internal work of looking at themselves in the mirror and really reflecting of like, what are my emotional tools to really build this?
Yeah.
Because I think that's where a lot of people are lacking.
Okay. A lot of people are lacking. When you said the dating pool is trash, I'm like, yep, hear that all the time. Oh, women aren't this. Oh, men aren't this. And I'm like, y'all, we're having the same conversations on these same podcast mics all the time.
And over.
Over and over.
And over.
And we're not moving anywhere. The needle's not moving. It's like nobody's extending grace to one another. We're at a continuous battlefield that just ends up lasting for so much longer. And we're not having these important conversations or these round tables where it's like, hey, you share this with me. You let me know where you're coming from. And like you said, even that reverse engineering of that's where people might start saying, well, I think this. Well, why do you think that? Actually, I don't know. Okay, let's unpack that. Why don't you know? Where do you think it comes from? Or when you're going back to your personal experiences and saying, well, this is what I just grew up with. So this is how I thought everybody is. And then how do you do the practice of unlearning to figure out what do you need to learn now for what you want? Based on if you recognize what I had or what I personally experienced, whether that's with how you saw your parents or how you saw love, how you grew up, how do I figure out now? How do I unlearn that so I can figure out what I need to learn for what I want to see when it comes to love?
Yeah. And again, you're just setting it up. You're setting it up great. Because you hitting on another unhidden like factors. Like, what is your capacity? And I think a lot of people, again, don't spend time really thinking about their capacity. But even in this idea of like when you date, there's no guarantee. You can do all the things right. And somebody might say, it's just not aligned with me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I think a lot of people haven't healed their capacity because dating can be very discouraging.
Hey.
A lot of times it might not work out. You might even get close to a place of like, you might be in a relationship for a while. You might think you found the one and it might not work out. And then I think a lot of people allow that to discourage them from even trying or even putting themselves out there. And I think even being able to like really sit in your own vulnerability and understand that the process of dating, the process of love, it's a vulnerable process. There's no guarantee. There's always a risk. And you have to be willing to put yourself in a position to do that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are scared of that. So the ability to even be vulnerable is an essential element of cultivating love and connection.
Yeah.
But everybody wants an emotional guarantee. So they don't want to put their foot out first.
Ooh.
They want to wait for everybody else to do it. and they want to wait till they know that there is absolutely no risk. And that's never going to be the case.
Ever. Ooh, that emotional guarantee. Might need to trademark that. Okay. Because that's so true. Where everybody's looking for, where can I remain comfortable? When it's like, hey, that's actually really not going to happen. You have to be able to get uncomfortable with many different things. So then having to get uncomfortable with another person. Also, I think it's the concept of, in where we are right now, we are also in a world of people want community, but also our team, I don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
And so those two things also don't work out when you are trying to find a partner as well. Because if you're already on the I don't owe you anything trend when it comes to your community, and that's your friends, your family, whatever your community looks like, that translates when you are trying to figure out, well, how do I find the perfect partner? You know, everybody's looking for what they see on socials and like, oh yeah, you look good on paper. That works. That's a person. That is a person at the end of the day. And you eventually, as you're continuing to grow with this person, you will have series of being uncomfortable. You are not going to be in la la land all the time when you're in a relationship. And so if you can't get past the capacity there of being able to only hold someone in this specific, you look like you check all the boxes, and also hold yourself accountable for being able to identify for yourself, hey, this stuff really matters to me, and how do I figure it out? Things aren't really going to go well, because to your point of how do you sustain that love, that's the first step of being uncomfortable and getting vulnerable. And if you can't figure that out for yourself, or you're not willing to do that for someone else, how can you expect someone else to be able to do that for you?
Yeah, and I also think we have to change the narrative about you not owing anybody anything too. Because at the most basic level, when somebody invites you, and when you're inviting somebody into your inner world and your outer world, you still owe somebody care. You still owe somebody respect. You still owe somebody human decency. You still owe somebody your intentionality with their reality. And I think that's the part that we all miss in a lot of ways, because we feel like, I don't owe you anything. I don't know you, but I know you enough to have this conversation. So I still owe you a level of care and consideration. And I think when we don't treat these connections with maturity, that is how so many things break apart. And that's how so many people have become jaded, because they've dealt with people who didn't handle them with care. Just because it doesn't work out doesn't mean I have to shame you. I don't have to break you down. I don't have to destroy your identity and your being. I can let you know that it's not for me, and I wish you the best. I can still treat you with kindness. I can still do all the things to respect you and the human that you are. But I think a lot of people, again, are jaded because they've dealt with a lot of things that they haven't fully processed yet. So because we haven't fully processed the pain that we're experiencing, we're going out and we're dating and we're meeting people, and we're even on a friendship level. Like, we're trying to build community from a standpoint of self-protection.
Yeah.
And the more that you are trying to protect yourself, the least likely you're going to be open and available to the possibility of what's out there.
Yep.
So like, people are building walls, they're not creating doors. And those doors are created by your boundaries, by your needs. But people don't have doors, they have walls. And then they wonder why can't I connect with anybody? Because you're not even allowing yourself the chance to connect with anyone.
Yeah. Whew. Walls and doors. Okay, y'all, I'm taking notes myself while we're talking about this. I'm like, okay, T, what walls do I have up that I believe are doors and they're not? Because how can anybody permeate through that? Like, you know what I mean? And you brought up a really good point as well of, even on a friendship level, there is a level of care and consideration that goes into that. And I remember I was listening to a podcast episode, and it was all around relationships, and that people don't consider friendships as relationships. They were like, that's a hot take of, you should treat your friendships like you think about relationships, because it's a relationship. Your friendships are relationships. Your relationships with your family, those are still relationships. But somehow we're only conceptualizing relationships to just this one little pool of who my life partner could be, or my life partners could be.
Yeah.
And so we end up putting so much emphasis into there and then the other places that are other relationships get diluted. I would love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on that concept of how we should treat all of our relationships with the same amount of care and support when we are thinking about how we would spend our lives with the partner when we're in the dating world.
Yeah, you bring up a really great point. We do often talk about love in a one-dimensional way, where it's only romantic. And love encompasses platonic, it encompasses familial, community, self. So these are all different elements that are very important, and they all fill into our understanding and our idea of love. A perfect example is you could be dating somebody who, let's say you had a really important day and they didn't text you about your day. Matter of fact, they forgot about your day. But then you had your friends text you. In that act, you see how somebody else is showing up for you in a way that the person who you wanted didn't show up for you. So many ways our friendships, our family, our community informs the way we understand love and sets a foundation for, and not even just a foundation, but a standard of like what we tolerate, what we want, what's important to us. So like when you close the door on friendships, when you close the door on community, when you close the door on even the relationship that you have with yourself, and you only hyper focus on romantic love, it hinders the ability to love fully and to love a person fully, because there's so many different elements of love that help you love better. And I think the goal, everybody thinks the goal is like, I just want to love. But it's not enough to just love. You also have to love well. And part of loving well is being open to other people loving you well. And I think both inform each other. So it's really important to cultivate those relationships and even practice using a lot of the tools that you might use romantically, especially if you don't have anybody that you're dating. Pour into your people, pour into your family, pour into your friends. And even for the people who are listening right now and they say like, I don't have anybody. There's nobody in my life who cares about me and loves me. One, I would challenge that, but I also understand that loneliness and that isolation feeling that life can bring you. But I would say this is your opportunity to put yourself in positions to try to meet people halfway. Go to some spaces, lean into your hobbies and the things that are important to you, the things that you like. Maybe you don't have any hobbies. Maybe you have to start at the people that you work with, right? And see where they can recommend or invite you. Maybe you have to put yourself in an awkward position of going to one of those events that, you know, who knows what might happen. But I think those are some of the steps and some of the ways that you can start really cultivating those relationships. Because I think, again, what ends up happening when you treat love one-dimensional, you pour everything, your whole being into a romantic relationship when your life encompasses so much more. And you can gain fulfillment in so many different areas. And all those areas are equally as important as the romantic one.
Yep. It almost makes me think of when, you know, you have so many good things that happen, but you always focus on that one negative thing that really went throughout your day. And to the same thing of your partner maybe forgot about your day, but your friends didn't. But you're feeling like, oh, this day sucks because my partner forgot about my day. What about your friends who showed up and brought you flowers or chocolate to your house to be like, congrats, girl, you ate that. Like,
did the whole 9 for you.
It's so important. And I think to your point as well, when you were just talking about like the importance of looking at love, not from a one-dimensional perspective, but also how that hinders how we can meet new people. I think about even some of the conversations that we have when people first meet, right? People are always like, I don't want to ask another person for the 37,000th time what their favorite color is. I don't want to know what your favorite snack is right now. We just having these little baby conversations.
Them questions are important. I don't care what nobody says.
They are very important.
They're important.
I think what people are struggling with, and you mentioned this earlier in that emotional toolbox, is what questions could or should they be asking when they're in those first stages of we're first meeting each other? What should they be asking based on your opinion?
Again, I feel like asking the favorite color is a great question. It leaves room for intentionality. You know what I mean? Like you can plan, fellas, listen, brother. You can plan, you know, a box, a set, a whole thing around the favorite color, flower, all the things. Great question. But all jokes aside, to answer your question, what is the best question to ask in the early stages? I've thought about this in so many different ways, because I feel like where I've often struggled even with myself is the early stages. Like, what do you ask that's right? What is the single most important question to ask somebody? And I don't believe there is one, to be honest with you. I think you have to just be honest about who you are, what you want, and what's your intended goal. When you have an idea of like where you want to go or kind of where you're feeling this connection might be, I think you start with the question to identify if that person is on the same page. So that might look like, what are your dating goals? Are you looking for long-term commitment? Are you looking to have fun? Are you looking for something serious? Are you looking for something more casual? I think like starting there to just ground the relationship or the dynamic of the connection might be the most important thing. But I also think there's context, right? Like sometimes when you meet somebody and you go out to dinner, you want to build up to that. Some people don't have the like, oh, so what are we doing? Right away, like that can be a lot for somebody else. So I also think you really have to read the room and you have to give it a feeling for the vibe and the person. And is there chemistry? Is there connection? Is there something that even inspires you and makes you want to see this longer? You know what I mean? So I think there's no one right answer. You kind of have to go with the flow of the ocean and just ride the wave. But I think some of the most important questions to ask is really the grounding questions of like, what do you want out of this? What is your intention? Where do you want to see it go? And then start with that and build upon that. Because I think the one thing that dating and relationships and friendships do, they're always going to bring a mirror and make you have to reflect on yourself. And with that reflection, you have to be honest of what you see and how somebody else's way of living or their move or like what's important to them, how does that now influence your decision making for that moment?
Man, that mirror thing, he ain't lying, y'all. There be times where I look, I'm like, woo. You pour so much into another person, and then you are met with however that person is. You start to see things. And it really all boils down to your approach as well when it comes to having these conversations and having these crucial conversations. And that ability to also still maintain connected while you're having these crucial conversations, that really throws people off for sure, where it doesn't have to be a sparring match every single time, but also it doesn't have to be a super calm conversation that feels like we're not connected. We don't have any substance to talk about. Like you're just telling me your point, I'm telling you my point, and then it's like, well, where do we go from there? And it comes from also, I think, when you're looking at that mirror and you're having to be really honest, you can get hurt. Like you can feel a multitude of different emotions when you're looking in that mirror.
For sure.
It's not something easy. It will never be something easy. It may be very heavy, even to just sit with it like, oh, wow. Like you always, when you are meeting new people, you are meeting new versions of yourself that you weren't able to unlock on your own. And that comes with a lot of accountability in a lot of different ways. And you can get hurt in that way and just how you feel. It might be a little hurtful to really face. And so what do you think people should do when it comes to, hurt people can hurt people. So how do we kind of break that cycle? And how should people really acknowledge that hurt or acknowledge those emotions that they're feeling and start doing that shadow work to do better?
It's funny you asked that because I was just working with a client about this. And like the most important thing is you have to recognize the trigger. A lot of times we feel the trigger and we react instantly.
Hey,
I'm cutting that person off. I am done with them. They're mean. They're inconsiderate. They're all these things. And I think at first you have to recognize the trigger and really slow down to process, why do I feel like this? What is this tapping into? What about my past experiences? What about my old wounds? What about this is making me feel uncomfortable? And you have to sit and you have to process that. And I think we don't spend enough time processing that. We react. Before you react, you have to have an understanding of like, what exactly are you feeling and why? Because when you understand why, now you're more informed on making a decision that can either bring somebody closer to you or recognize, oh, this might not be good. So your trigger is a signal. Once you recognize that signal, now what do you need? What is this telling you that you need right now? Do you need reassurance? Do you need clarity? Do you need understanding? Now that we can identify our need, now you can go back to that person and you could communicate. based on how you communicate it and how they react to that communication tells you all you need to know about that person right then and there. But I think a lot of times, like, again, we react so quickly and then I'm cutting you off, I'm done. And a lot of times, especially in the early stages, people don't even understand and even know that they're triggering us. So it's like until you bring that up to light, people aren't going to understand that. And I think, again, this goes back to the point of like, but that person doesn't owe me anything. So it's too soon to bring up this, or I don't want to come off as needy. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. And all of that is a fear of yourself, a fear of being too much, a fear of not being enough, a fear that somebody is not going to receive it. But the only way you'll ever be able to get what you want is if you communicate. So if you are triggered by something and whatever is triggering you, let's say the person hasn't texted you all day. Cool. For some people, communication is one of the most important elements, communicating throughout the day. For other people, they can go a whole day and not really think twice because they're busy, but still have you on their mind the whole time. People are set up differently. People apply and live by different rules. If you are being triggered because somebody isn't communicating with you, that is your opportunity to communicate to that person, hey, I want you to know something that I need and something that's really important to me is communication. It doesn't have to be all day. It doesn't have to be every second, but I at least need to have a check-in in order for me to be reassured that everything is okay. When you communicate that, you give the other person the autonomy to make a decision based on what you need. And with that autonomy and with that decision-making, that lets you know if somebody is willing, again, keyword, willing to extend themselves for you, or if they're not. If they're not, it was a great time. I appreciate our time. We're misaligned. If they're like, yes, this works. Okay, I got you. Then you give them the time to be able to practice that. But again, we don't lean into that. We jump into, oh, they hate me. They don't want me. I don't want them. This is a bad person.
Blocked.
Why aren't you thinking about me 24/7? Block. Gone. I don't want you. And I think that's some of the ways in which we get in our own way. And it's a form of self-sabotage for sure.
Yeah. Going into, let's say, the long stages now. Let's say you're long term. We're moving from the early stages. How do you feel like people should also communicate when things have changed? So maybe you don't need as much when it comes to communication, or maybe you need more of something else when it comes to your relationship, and you may not know how to go about having that communication and talking about it. Especially like the longer you're with someone, the more things will come up, and maybe there's more triggers that you have to confront. And as you resolve those things, you may not need certain actions anymore. What advice would you give to long term?
I would say the number one issue that a lot of people have is that we make the assumption that our person is our person and they're always going to be the same person. And then there's a quote about love is attending the death of the person over 1,000 times and learning how to love them again. And I think that for one, you constantly have to think about the person who you're with is also changing just like you. So the person who you was when you all were first dating is completely different than year 2. Year 2 is completely different than year 5. And you have to have space for that. So with creating space for that, you also have to be able to open yourself up to having those like hard conversations and creating space for hard conversations. Do we have a weekly check-in? Do we have a monthly check-in? Do we have some intended space where we are going to look at each other and really have this conversation about what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What's working? What's not working? Did I do something that sets you off or triggered you? Did you do something that set me off or triggered you? Like, we don't create enough space for those meaningful conversations. And I would honestly say like that, again, this is not one-dimensional. This is for our friends. This is with our family. This is even with ourselves. So being able to have these meaningful conversations and like create that space to face it and confront it and really sit there and be like, what are things that I can do better?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times with these long-term relationships and connections that we have, we just assume we know that person.
Right.
You like this, 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 and this. And because you like that, I'm comfortable. And now that I'm comfortable, I don't have to change anything. I got you down to a formula. I'm going to keep doing this formula every single day, and it should be enough.
Yeah.
But the same way you do that formula, people change.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't notice those changes until a conflict happens to where that person tells you, oh, well, I don't need that anymore. I actually haven't done that for a while. And then there are these natural forms of resentment that come up too, that now you're also having to try and battle and address of like, I haven't done this in such a long time, or I haven't been this way in such a long time. I'm not that person anymore who is immediately thinking like this, or who is always going to do this, or I'm not as predictable as you think anymore. And so now both of you are having to do shadow work of understanding who this new person is now, that you are fully aware of it consciously, but then also them having to do the process of unlearning that, so that way they can reduce and eventually get rid of that resentment entirely.
Yeah, and a lot of that resentment comes directly from unmet needs and not communicating.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you see it and you recognize it and you feel like it, this doesn't feel right. This stings a little bit. But it's not that deep. I'm not going to talk about it. That's fine. It's not that serious. And then you keep doing that once, twice, 5 times, 10 times. And now you recognize, I don't even, what do you mean you did that? He did that? And that's where that resentment starts to build. And I think, again, those are all signs of like triggers that you have to start leaning into. You have to process. It is a big deal. It's a big deal because it's you. And you are a big deal. And just as important as it is to be selfless for your partner and to show up and to be willing and to extend yourself, part of love is also loving yourself and not abandoning yourself. And there's a lot of people who are in long-term relationships, friendships, family members, where the whole relationship is built on you abandoning yourself and not standing up for yourself. So more people have to be able to sit with that uncomfortable feeling and lean in towards those hard conversations.
Yeah.
Because those are the conversations that are going to really shape and create and make that relationship better.
Yeah. And not even just a relationship with that person, but that relationship with yourself as well.
100%.
Validating yourself of like, you know what? I'm actually not tripping, because there's also so many times where we betray ourselves when it comes to us when we're doing stuff. But then if someone else, you could tell someone else, or someone else could tell you the exact same thing that you just did. And you're like, I would never.
Never.
And then it becomes you.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's no longer I would never. It's like, well, like the circumstance don't. It's like,
It's a little different.
Right.
That's what they'll hit you with that. It's a little different. It's like, I don't know about that one, big fella.
It's probably not that different, big dog.
Pretty similar.
Pretty on the nose, actually.
Yeah,
it's
for
very
sure.
aligned. And it's that facing that vulnerability as well of like, you know what? That isn't that much different. And speaking on vulnerability, I definitely want to give you an opportunity to expand more on club vulnerability.
CV, what up?
Hey. Share a little bit more about how that came to be as well.
Yeah, club vulnerability really, it's funny because it's like, it was low-key like a whim. Like I was coming back home from my PhD program and during winter break, and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to like host an event. And in terms of like trying to figure out an event and what to do, I was like, yo, I really want to change and redefine how we network with each other. Earlier in the car, we were talking about like conferences and all these ways in which people create these networking opportunities. But I always felt like they were kind of like shallow in a way.
Hey.
You show up, people have this expectation that you're just going to magically talk to people. If you don't magically talk to people, then that's not our fault. Who put it on? That's your fault. And I do think that people got to meet you with some level of self-accountability and self-responsibility in these spaces, but I also think you can help.
Yeah.
So club vulnerability was this idea of going beyond networking into connection and really creating a space for people to connect.
Yeah.
And not just connect, like connect deeply and not feel a pressure of like, if you're an introverted person, you could be in the space and you could still thrive at the pace that works for you. If you're somebody who's extroverted, you could be in this space and you can thrive in a pace that works for you. So it's bringing all these different worlds and all these different people and to help them connect in ways that meets them where they're at and not having them have to meet the event to where it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? So CV started out as an event. And then it just opened up into a just wellness company. So we do wellness trainings, development. We do relational wellness coaching. And it's really just rooted in culture. It's rooted in wellness and it's rooted in connecting and like making the world just a better place for sure.
Yeah, I hear you because I'm like, a lot of these events people go to, they take the pictures, they post it. That's it. That's all. But then in really recapping, what did that event do for you? What did it impact you on? It's essentially like, what is it really bringing to you and how is it shaking the table for you? What's the value in that? And then also, would you recommend that to others? And I think that's always a big telling factor when they're like, I might or I might not. But really, people are craving more than ever authenticity and that connection and that
100%.
community. But it's almost like it's becoming a lost art in some ways, in the way that we have kind of commodified what community looks or sounds like or what it's
100%.
supposed to be. And so it's very interesting to hear a little bit more about Club Vulnerability and how that came to be, but also just you feeling that same way too. And when you don't see the opportunity for that to be there by someone else, you create the opportunity yourself.
Yeah. And I think like the biggest misconception about me, even though some of my friends would disagree, is that as much as I come off as an extroverted person, that is usually not how I start out. Like I'm very reserved. I'm very quiet. I'm watching the room. And it's until I feel a level of safety, until that extroverted person comes out. And I think because I understand the experiences of like somebody who's introverted, but then also somebody who can be like extremely extroverted, there's a bridge that a lot of people miss, that a lot of people just fall between the cracks, because when you go into these event spaces, it's really easy to not be seen. It's really easy to not be heard and to feel as if like, yeah, I went to this conference and it was like 5,000 people. It was like, oh my God, there's so many people. I don't even know how to talk to anybody. I'm kind of scared to talk. Y'all all seem like you know each other or you're cool or you have all this confidence. But I don't know, like, I got a degree, you know what I mean? Like, and that's how we start talking about ourselves. So creating a space where we lean into vulnerability, we lean into who you are, and we say like, whoever you are is enough.
Yeah.
Come as you are, and however you show up, we're gonna make sure you feel a part of this community and you feel like home. To me, that's the most important thing, because there's a lot of people out here who don't feel like they can be safe anywhere and with anyone. And it's hard to connect. It's extremely difficult to connect. As somebody who people think, oh, you move through connections, it is hard to genuinely connect with someone. So we try to do our job in helping people do that.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, it's so interesting that you say that, because also I get that same misconception sometimes as well. It's like, oh, it's so easy for you to talk to people. It's so easy for you to da-da-da-da. And I'm like, y'all, I look at it differently, where I'm like, I don't see it from I'm here networking. I'm seeing it from, hey, I'm just yapping.
Yeah.
Like, I broke it down to a level for myself where it's like, things used to be scary for me of talking to people in certain ways. But then when I thought about how is it different from when I'm talking to my friend, when I'm getting to know someone on just a one-to-one, when you're publicly speaking, it doesn't mean that, oh my God, I have to give a full TED talk to thousands of people. Oh my goodness, I'm about to sing the Star Spangled Banner to, like, that's what it feels like. But really kind of grounding yourself in that reality of what it is. But most importantly, what you're trying to get from it and the value and the emotion that you will feel when you have that feeling where I'm like, how would I feel once this is done?
Yeah.
And really holding on to that and pushing me through to continue doing that, or really level set myself now to where it's a lot easier to talk or communicate with people that I'm getting to build relationships with in many different ways. Game changer.
Yeah. What's crazy about what you said, and this is like, even hearing myself say this, like, I know it sounds crazy. I much rather talk to a room of thousands. Like, I spoke at graduation and there was over 8,000 people there.
Wow.
I've done a TED Talk before.
Period.
I much rather do that. And I feel more comfortable doing that sometimes than a one-on-one conversation. Or like going to a conference and there's a bunch of people and it's like, oh, who do I start with? Who do I talk to? How do I start the conversation? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a lot of people, like, we run away from this, just the real truth. Like, connection is hard.
Yeah.
It is inherently difficult because it takes a level of vulnerability. It takes a level of putting yourself out there with risk and no guarantee. I can walk up to you, I can talk to you, and you can look at me and be like, huh? You know what I mean? Like, okay, cool. Like, you could think I'm awkward. You could think I'm weird. You could think I'm the greatest person, the worst. There's no guarantee. And that's extremely terrifying.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And I think that even in my personal experience, like, Club Vulnerability helps heal me, because I think people assume it's always easy.
Yeah.
But when there's space and I know that there's safety and I know that I can be who I am and I don't have to worry about the different layers of myself, I can just show up and be, and that's enough. Like, CV really be healing me and myself. So part of it's like, yeah, I made it for y'all, but made it for me too. You know what I mean? Like it do get hard and it do get challenging. And it's a space where I'm actually like really excited for you to like experience it.
I'm so excited, y'all.
I'm excited.
I'm finna be there at the Atlanta event. Of course, when this comes out, y'all will just be seeing the pictures. However, look for me in them pictures, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's gonna be a good time.
I'm very, very excited. And I'm similar to you, where when I create opportunities, most of the time it's like, dang, I don't have anything for me in that space. And I'm like, you know what? About to build it. About to be Bob the Builder in this building. And same thing, even with like the podcast, hey y'all, the dinner series, any of that stuff that is my passion projects, I really built it for me because I was feeling some type of way. And then I happened to connect with other people who were feeling the same thing. And I'm like, oh, this actually could become something much bigger. And I feel the same way. Every time I have a podcast episode, every time I'm doing the dinner series, I'm like, whoa, you learn so much when you're around other people. And you learn so much about yourself too. Where sometimes I'll be talking and I'm riffing off of something that someone else had just said or asked a question about. And I'm like, whoa, that was actually bars. I need to write that down and remember it for myself. And it also helps you to reaffirm who you are too, being around other people. Like when you were saying the thing about, I don't know how to network, it'd just be like, oh, who are you? I got a degree. And you, like literally it's like, your degree, that's fire. You have a degree. Like, you should be thinking about it that way. Yeah. But you subconsciously shrink yourself in so many different ways as connection is something that approaches being hard as you're starting out. And then some things about connection, it may not get easier in some different ways, especially in the dating world. But connection is something that is driving the world around. It's not just money. Connection is really something that everybody's looking for. You see people craving it in the things that we buy and the things that we can relate to. It's always, does this look like me? Does this evoke emotions in me? Is this something that I want to get behind, something I want to promote because I know this will actually do something for the community. This will actually provide an impact. It is so, so, so important that you understand in those regards, if you treat that same level amount of care when it comes to your products, who you support, why not treat that same level of connection, care for yourself?
Yeah, 100%. I truly live by a quote. What's bad for your heart is good for your art. And like that quote has carried me through many quotes, but that one has carried me the most because a lot of times like the things that have been bad for me is the direct reason why I found my purpose. And it's like, even when you were talking, like so much of my story revolves around just the idea of belonging. A desire to just belong. Because when I didn't feel like I belonged, I didn't feel like I was lovable. I didn't feel like I was good enough. I didn't feel like I was smart enough, whatever the case may be. So a lot of like, even why I studied love is because so much of belonging can be rooted to love.
Yeah.
And that ability to understand it for me was like, oh, the more I learn, the more I can figure it out, the more I can lean into a stronger understanding of what love is. Maybe that can help me feel and appreciate and understand and see the love that's already in my life.
Yeah.
So I think that you make such a great point. And like anybody who's listening, truly, like a lot of times what we're going through is the things that scare us. And like we might not feel like we're good and we might not feel like we're enough. Or we might look at our resume and shrink ourselves and say like, man, I'm really not that person. But those are the moments where you really got to lean into that. And you got to really see the value and the beauty and the purpose in that.
Yeah. And I think also we say or we feel sometimes it's like, okay, the expectations that we are aware of, those are the only ones we lay out. But there are unconscious expectations that we have when it comes to love and connection. And that belonging actually even made me think about what we expect in the workplace. We expect what? Some type of belonging, some type of culture where we can be, where we can fit. There is love in that. There is connection in that. It's just not the way that you're typically thinking about it. You really value that within a culture where you can feel like yourself, where other people can value you. That is a form of love and care and connection. You're just not prioritizing or defining it that way. And I think the more that we start to kind of break down those buckets, those constraints that we're putting on ourselves unknowingly, that can put us in a place as well where we're able to receive more, but also able to understand and love and connect with each other more.
Yeah.
You know what, y'all?
Real quick, before you even say that, I just got to give you your flowers. You're like fire at this. Like, that was amazing.
Thank Thank you.
No lie, like you really made for this. I'm sitting here like, yo, the way that you even like navigate talking to me and then talking to the people and then going back to you and all that, it's like, oh yeah, now you are made for this.
Thank you. I feel like that Will Smith meme. I don't know if y'all seen it, but in that music video where you going, that's exactly what I feel like. But I appreciate it. I think, like you said, like Club Vulnerability, it is your space where you can be more for yourself and you can also heal yourself in that way. I truly think of the podcast that way as well, of really being able to provide conscious conversations and connections that really matter to students or matter to early career or matter to professionals of all these places that we haven't explored. And I think love is a big one that is in everything that we do, as much as we don't think about it. And so I really appreciate you even just having this lovely, pun intended, y'all.
That was corny.
Lovely conversation. And
Corny.
You know what?
That's crazy.
I'm not going to rush on here. Don't worry.
That was crazy. Sorry, y'all.
It's okay.
She's been coming at me all day.
I have
for
not.
my sports teams.
I have not.
For my city.
I have not.
For the weather in my city.
Don't mention the S word, y'all, that just passed in February. His team lost, but I even took the love and the care and consideration of not saying the S word out loud. You see, there's even love between us that is happening right now. Care and consideration. And you know what? On that note,
right.
You know what? Dr. Nigel, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing more of just your wisdom around love, communication, care, support, the importance of access and resources to understanding that. Is there anything that you would want to leave us with?
Oh, anything that I would want to leave you with. Yeah. So I have like these 2 tattoos. I don't know if it'll show on camera, but one of them.
You can roll it up. Hey.
All right. So I have one that says, I don't know if y'all can see this.
They can see it.
It says, "You are worthy now." I think one of the hardest challenges of my life is like some of the stuff that we talk about is minimizing yourself and shrinking yourself and trying to fit yourself into this perceived box of like what is going to accept you and what's going to work for you, and constantly moving the goalpost and telling yourself, when I reach this point, then I can be this and I can do this and I can feel this way about myself or feel this way or open myself up to dating, all the different constraints that we give ourselves. But the first thing I want you to know is like, you are worthy now. Not tomorrow, not a week later, not when you get the job, not when you find a relationship, now, in this moment. And I think that's just so important to hear. And it's also something that, as myself, that is a daily struggle that I'm constantly reminding myself of. And then the next one, which is like even more, where it says, "Go where you're loved." I think both of those are just, they echo each other. A lot of the reasons why we struggle is because we put ourselves in situations and in spaces where people don't appreciate us, where people don't see us. And we chase the validation and the reassurance and the just being seen from people who already don't see us. And they're already committed to not seeing us. When there's so many other people who see and appreciate who you are, the work that you do, the way that you laugh, the way that you smile, and all the things in between. So I would say to like anybody listening, you are worthy right now, and go where you're loved. Those are the 2 most important things that I've learned in my life. And they always are the ultimate grounding tools to remind me that I am enough.
If that isn't the best way to sign off on this love letter of episode, I don't know what is. Thank you so much, Dr. Nigel, for coming on the show. Guys, make sure to tap in with Dr. Nigel. All of his social handles will be in the show notes below, of course. And of course, tap into Club Vulnerability as well. And remember, you are worthy now.
And go where you're loved.
Period. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Intentional Intern podcast. We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a boost of motivation to take on your career journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, leave a review, and share it with your network. Connect with us on LinkedIn and Instagram and let us know your thoughts. Your feedback fuels our next great episode. Until next time, stay intentional, keep growing, and keep shining bright. See you in the next episode.